first one is Composite FX.
Please.
We have our act together. Let's figure out where our clock is.
I got it right here.
Somebody, you're going?
Yep.
How long he has, what we gotta do?
Can I just ask one quick question? It says the companies, the levels, are there the levels noted somewhere? How is there in advance? Is that something we're supposed to take into account?
I don't know. Bear with us.
Yeah, no worries.
Okay, and the timing here is,
The first, just a minute,
Yep.
then I get 20 minutes,
Did you get 20?
and then I think the balance is exchanged between us, right?
That is correct.
Okay.
everybody ready?
Yep.
Okay, you got a clock?
Yep.
Go.
Fire away.
Hey, thank you. So what you're looking at is a product we call the Ag Striker. It is a UAV made for crop dusting, UAV being an unmanned autonomous vehicle, and it can deliver some 500 pounds precisely. So it's made primarily to meet the global needs of global food security. It's based on the single-seat Mosquito XC helicopter, of which we've been building for several years. We built some 300 of them, and we have tens of thousands of flight hours on the platform. You might be familiar that small drones don't carry any payload, and large aircraft are expensive and can be quite unsafe in this circumstance. And our Ag Striker is safe, cost-effective, and a new way to deliver a quarter-ton payload with no pilot and no runway.
So you can fire right into the main pitch.
Main pitch?
And we'll go from there. Yes, sir.
Okay, very good.
Thank you.
So, well, we'll keep it here for a second. So I'd like to introduce Dwight Junkin. He's my associate behind me, and he's running the computer back there. So Composite FX and Composite FX Sales are two sister companies. One is a sales company for the manufacturing company, which is Composite FX. And we've been building these helicopters now for over 10 years in Trenton, Florida, which is about 30 miles west of town. So Composite FX is a Florida Chapter S corporation. Composite FX Sales is an LLC, also in Florida, and all privately owned among people within the company. So, here we go. So, global food security is a big deal. Certainly you're familiar with the news issues that the regime in Egypt turned over, and many historians might be able to tell you that one of the reasons for that upheaval was the cost of grain was so high, and consequently the cost of bread. We are about right here right now, and as far as Google tells me, we're at about 7.5 billion. Everyone wants 2 or 3 sandwiches a day. Some of them even want protein with those sandwiches, and the way we make protein right now is by feeding them lots of grains. So, and we are nowhere near anywhere close to peaking out towards 2050. Bottom line is, agriculture industry needs solutions to help them tackle tasks of the production that's needed for food security. So, this is an example of blight. In fact, Dwight, can you have the lights off right there? Perfect. So this is a rice blight, and we'll come back around to this. A rice field, you can only spray them aerially after the fields are flooded, so there's no going in there and taking care of the blight that's there. This is a corn blight. This is something that a farmer would have to treat after he found it. They have to get out in the field, get out there and spray it. And often there's insect blights that also, the insects will eat the plants, or they will bring with viruses, among other things. So, what are we competing against? Conventionally, if all of us had big farms right now, or even a small farm, it's frequent that land-based spraying is quite conventional. So, and that is where you have a tank and a tractor and a big spray boom, and you drag this through the field with some considerations. Right now, this guy's not destroying any crops. Once the crops come into the field and you need to do some spraying, there are some specialty tractors that are high-wheeled and no bottoms on them, and they're made to get through corn rows. but it's very difficult and it requires additional equipment. So the market that we're aiming for is conventional aerial application. Now, these are piloted aircraft, so there's a skilled operator in the machine. And they deliver, if it's not obvious, they're delivering pesticides, fungicides, herbicides onto the fields, whether they're problem areas or if they are the whole field wide. So as it stands, we'll get into this a little bit more. Roughly, it's quite a variance. We're looking at $15 to $25 an acre that someone would pay a crop duster if we had 50 acres or 500 acres out there. And if we want to spray in Napa Valley and take care of some prized grapes that are going to make our wine, we're looking at $400 to $500 per acre in spraying. So the machines are expensive, the operators are expensive, and there aren't that many of them. And there's something VFR that when you're in the aerospace business is visual flight rules. You can't fly in the fog. Flying at night is very difficult. Whether if it's windy, you have pesticide blows all over. So there's all kinds of difficulties with the industry. So difficulties, let me tell you about it. These machines cost over $1 million a piece. This one costs about $1.5 million. And if you Google it, you can find all kinds of pictures of wrecks. The biggest problem is there's an operator in these machines. And if you're fixed wing, this thing is loaded down with a lot of weight. It's a complete hot rod of a bird. But if something goes wrong, you've got no margin of error because you're 10 foot off the ground trying to bail out of power lines. So in order to get better treatment in the fields, Big Ag needs an autonomous solution. Autonomous, there's no people involved, okay? So we can achieve cost reductions. Our machines are exceptionally dependable. Application capacity can be bigger because we can be in the fields at night. We can be in the fields in the fog. There's, in fact, our machine is very good at even some high winds, and I'll describe to you later how the rotor wash even helps the application get onto the plant. So, and then beyond that, the industry needs improved safety. Ready? Okay, so here's a picture of one of our birds. In fact, we've got two of them. This is the Ag Striker. It is based on a manned helicopter that we've been building. We've built some 300 of them, and we know a bunch as a result of having 300 pilots out there putting hundreds of hours on their machines. The airframe is tested and quite true. The operational costs of a helicopter that has no transmission is exceptionally inexpensive, and as a result of that, the operation of the machine, the servicing of the machine operation is very low. We can operate at times when piloted aircraft can't, and of course, there's no operator in that machine, and so if in fact something goes wrong, we don't have risk of life. So my associate Dwight, who's in the back, that's what it looks like from the front. So this is in one of the fields associated with our factory, and so you can see spray boom on there. That's pictures there for a given piece of skill. Most people they can't imagine what this is. A 6'4" operator fits on the inside when it's a manned craft. So what do we have? So this is another bird that we have, another test bird. Roughly the machine would fit in this room if we could get it in the door. This door is a little low. The top is approaching 7.5 foot. So the boom is 16 foot wide, roughly 100 horsepower, 40-gallon tanks. We could put bigger ones on, but for now we've just got 40-gallon tanks midship, and it's quite a workhorse. So here I want to differentiate how we might perform in the market. Our first Ag Striker, our product, versus some other things. The John Deere product, at the very bottom, costs some $300,000, and you need a $300,000 tractor to pull it, and you're going through the field in order to destroy crops, or if the field is muddy or rainy or something along those lines. But these are the economies of scale that I want to represent. John Deere, just the spray rig, $300,000. Just the helicopter, the R-44, is some $600,000 or $1.5 million or $1 million plus for the ag tractor. So when you're in the commercial food industry, the expensive equipment is the norm, and for a $200,000 per copy price that we have on our machine, we have a lot of margin. So we can compete quite strong. Why? Because the experimental aircraft that we've been building for pilots, there's nothing like that out there for pilots otherwise. It's such a small machine, and when you retrofit it into this market, there's no platform. So Boeing doesn't have a machine that small, and there's just a big blind spot in the commercial industry that our machine fits in nice. You'll see somebody else who is trying to get into it. So our machine for precision, the GPS will guide it. Right now we're thinking between plus or minus 1.5 inches is good enough. If we put another redundant GPS on there, we can get within a couple of centimeters. So good enough, and if the field is flooded or wet, no sweat, because we're not going to land in it. We're going to land on a pad that we bring out. Lastly, with the fractional crew is a big deal. It is very reasonable. If any of you know what a CNC machining center might be, you've seen lathes or mills, operating this machine is very similar. And in a good machine shop, one operator is running 2, 3 machines, 4 machines sometimes if the programs are long. And so rather than having a pilot, and a ground crew that's doing refueling and putting all the chemical back in the machine, one guy can operate, we're thinking, probably between 3 and 5 birds at a time. So this gives you an idea. So different markets that we have. First of all, the machine that's pictured and in flight there is a UAV that we built for a military contractor. We built some 25 or 26 for them already. And so in terms of proof of concept or whatever, it's wide open. This military contractor buys them in order to put missile systems on them, but primarily to test other shoulder-fired rockets or other radar systems or something. They actually have to shoot stuff down in order to test equipment. And our bird is cheap enough that they outfit it, send it up autonomously, and they shoot it out of the air, unless the missile doesn't work, and then it lives to fight another day. So we're already servicing some of the military market, but ag is our primary because it's the commercial drive in ag is consistent and strong. Law enforcement can get in, search and rescue, humanitarian, Zika virus. You know, there's all kinds of things, whether it be national, but truthfully, most of our business is global. The helicopters that we're building right now, over 50% we send overseas. This week we're sending something to Australia and China. Last week we sent something to New Zealand. The week before something to Europe. And I made a week before something stayed in the country. So it's not really, the market here is global. Please, go ahead, you're next. So projected revenues are rough, and we've got 2 things to bounce off of here. This is based on production and based on a $200,000 sales price. Those are some assumptions that are still, they're not fast and loose, but they're assumptions nonetheless. So we have tooling in place already, since we've been building these machines for years, to start building these roughly 1 every 3 or 4 days. Okay, so we've got 2 sets of tooling, and what the throughput is on the single shift. As it stands right now, we're building roughly 1 machine a week, with our current crew, with our funding, and so on. The tooling in order to make the ag striker is the same tooling that we already have. So now all of a sudden here we're making about a machine a week, about 3 machines a week, and finally getting into, in this area, about 1 a day with single shift. Then when we start looking at multiples of this, this is roughly 500 machines per year. It requires some significant tooling on our side because we have to replicate what we already have. But for lack of better terms, we're photocopying, we're not figuring out in order to do that scale. So I want to bring up something that maybe we could talk about later. There are 2 different ways that we can do this. There's a sales model that we are pursuing, and we're investigating still leasing the equipment. So rather than sell you the helicopter, I'll lease it to you for X amount a year, I'll be responsible for maintenance and updates, among other things. However, for the small place that we are, that's a working capital constrained model, and it has its own challenges. So, all right, so here we are, some just pictures of what we do. These are helicopters that we build next April. We're going to have a fly-in. You're all welcome to come by the factory, and you'll see a bunch of customers come in. They bring their machines for a weekend. Everyone's flying, trading, fishing stories, all kinds of other stuff. But this is an ongoing business with ongoing revenue that this idea is coming from. So, the competitive landscape is thin, however, strong. You've heard the name Yamaha before. Yamaha's a big deal, big deep pockets. Yamaha doesn't sell these machines, they lease them. So I don't know what Yamaha's balance sheet looks like, but I bet you it's stronger than ours. So they are able to deliver with a helicopter spraying material. They do not yet do it completely autonomously. And you can see the size of the machine that they have. They base this on a motorcycle platform. This delivers less than 25% of the capacity or the payload that we have on our machine. So this is the next closest. It's a powerhouse name, Yamaha, and they've got a great idea. They've also been doing it since the 90s, so they're not new at it. In fact, in order to get in the U.S. market, Northrop Grumman bought 50% of the business for the U.S. market so that they can get in with the FAA, among other things. So it's a powerhouse, but when you look at the picture with Dwight standing next to it and this, they're also two different kinds of machines. And these, by the way, are getting $450 an hour in Napa Valley. So they just now starting to fly. So we just finished another helicopter, and we're in test flying now. This I don't have a picture for it for scale. Two people sit in this side by side. It's significantly bigger than the last one in terms of width. It's maybe about 8 feet longer than the last one, but now we're talking about a 1,000-pound payload with easy math. And so when we get into the engineering of things, we're not even on the hairy edge of what the machine can do with putting 1,000 pounds in it. So we have a follow-on product off of the 500-pound. So we've been considering chasing some funding. And with a $3 million A round in 2 tranches, we believe we can get to a machine per day within 18 months. Okay, so the 2 tranches based on the A, first one would be some facilities improvements. The second one is primarily working capital. Right, we've got some marketing, some legal costs, among other things. But basically off of that A round and performance milestones, we could easily nail within 18 months doing a machine a day, roughly 200 per year, roughly at the assumed $200,000 per copy price, $37.5 million worth of business per year, right, with fantastic margin. So we've got some of the primary expenses, working capital, as you can see, but we've got staff, we've got patents, we've got some facility and equipment to do, basically buying a lot of photocopiers and making a lot more parts. So I'm super comfortable that the blue sky of an ROI of sub 3 years is doable. And beyond that, one of our explorations is there's a lot of matching funds. We're in Gilchrist County, and there's a lot of opportunity, Florida, among other things, for rural development that we can probably lean on to make sure that that $3 million A round is, there might be matching funds or some guaranteed monies that way. So, here's the team. So, first of all, I gotta say, we're missing one guy. He went fishing this day that we took the picture. Okay, so we're a small, tight crew, and that's, of course, the 2 place that's behind us. We have the expertise of making the machines and making them repetitively. However, we're taking a big bite here going after this commercial effort. And so we recognize that, and the CEO and CFO are to be determined, and they're going to be hires that we bring in should we go get this money. Now, the important and exciting thing for us is that we've got, in order to do a machine a day, I've got well over 20 people that we have to bring on site. So it's multiples of what we already have, and we're going to make a lot of machine shops in the local area and get really busy. So that's going to be exciting. Whether it's Jacksonville, Orlando, or here in Gainesville, it's going to be awesome. So that is the crux of my presentation. Really, it's unbelievable how there's no competitor in this because nobody builds an airframe that fits in this area the way that ours does. How's my 20 minutes?
18 on the dot.
Okay, great. So,
Put the lights in.
please.
Thank you. A couple things about the market and the device itself. When you first started, you said it had a capacity of 500 pounds.
That is the single place, that is the yellow machine.
The yellow machine.
Yes.
And
Or the green and checkered machine when you saw pictures of both. They have capacity of 500 pounds, please.
Oh, okay. And so if you put 40 pounds on there, or 40 gallons.
It's not even at 500 pounds yet. If it's water.
Yeah, water is about 8.35 per pound, so you get about 330. So the capacity would be somewhere around 65 pounds.
Right, 60 gallons, 65
Yeah.
gallons then.
Okay.
Right.
And as far as the ag market, my son-in-law works for Pioneer and sells the stuff they put on it.
Okay.
Is it primarily you're aiming at broad spectrum, like anything from grapes to corn to rice to wheat to whatever, as a general application, or are you trying to focus on one market now? Because DuPont, Pioneer, and Dow, and Monsanto, I mean, there's very few players that control the actual stuff you're putting on.
Understood, okay. So, and my answer is a little wiggly. So we're now going after learning what about chemical applications. So we're helicopter guys, we're not chemical application guys. So there, and this doesn't have to be, right now it's not hard and fast.
Okay.
So we have people calling us every week, can I buy one yet, can I buy one yet? One guy wants to run it in his pecan orchard in California for frost mitigation. So if you circulate the air above the trees and keep it going, and you put the machine in a pattern that it constantly keeps crossing back and forth, it mitigates frost in his orchard. He's ready to buy it instantly. I can give you 10 different instances that people are dying for it. So first people who show up, it'll be interesting to see what markets it goes into. However, there are some higher value, going into Napa and delivering some of these things above high value vines. That's, okay, Yamaha wants $450 an hour for it. I'm sure some contractor, some entrepreneur who buys our machine says, okay, I'll come in for $300 an acre, right? And he'll make an unbelievable profit on it for that matter. So there's, whether we sell it to the farmer or we sell it to a hotshot crew. So in agriculture, when there's planting or harvesting, there are crews that are mobile and they'll start harvesting corn in Texas in July. And they'll make their way all the way from North Dakota, harvesting that same corn until October, November. And we envision an opportunity where a guy or a crew could have 4 or 5 of these and do spraying and follow the seasons around.
So does it actually use on the ground a physical operator that's standing there with a joystick, yada yada, or do you program
It is last resort. If something's going wrong, the operator can switch it over and bring it in RC. However, it is like a CNC machine tool. It has a Z, it has X and Y. X and Y's are governing the borders of the field that you have, governed by GPS. There's a GPS, actually redundant, triple redundant GPS receivers, among other things. And it will do its dance within the field, monitoring that when I'm running out of spray, I'm going to come back to home and I'm going to ask for more spray. And then I'm going to go right back where I was, turn it on at the right time and keep on going, right? Or it comes in if there's a mechanical condition or if it's running low on fuel or whatever the case might be. And I should say, what I didn't say in the minute today, why isn't this done before? There's another component to it. So we are not autonomous pilot programmer people. There are now, because of the small drones, off-the-shelf available software that we can plug into our machine. So 20 years ago, you had to be Northrop Grumman, you had to be Boeing in order to do something like this. Now, with all the little quadcopters or whatever the case is, you can buy the software and put it on specialty machines. We just happen to have a very big specialty machine. Now, it's also not a $50 application that makes our helicopter fly. The software before the servos is approaching $20,000. So it's not something that somebody's just going to walk up and retrofit their own single-place helicopter. Let alone there's $10,000 in servos and antennas and all kinds of ways to make all of those match.
So is it patentable, is it proprietary to the company?
Yes, and we have. That's one of the uses we're going to have of some of this draw is to chase more intellectual property as
So
well.
which part is patentable, if the software is not yours?
So the airframe, the way that the instruments, the way that the solenoids and our servos integrate with the helicopter platform. So it gets a little helicopter-y, but this is a full cyclic helicopter. It's not a, it's an aerospace term. And the way that our servos interact with the helicopter and make it do what it does is protectable.
It's like a
among others.
process patent, or is it
It's, I don't know if it's going to be processed, you're the patent guy, but so whether it's patent or design, it's going to be the minimum of design patent. I'm sorry, go ahead.
I'm awesome at that.
Oh, okay, I didn't know, I haven't met yet.
I agree, because I was going to say too, you have one word, I mean, in your slide is for future, you have the word patent there, but to bring it out in your presentation would be really useful. Because I think
To show that we've got stuff to protect that.
So, I mean, you have the word patents up there and you maybe said it, but there was no, it was.
Yeah, to understand what it is.
Right.
For some people, that would be okay if they check their mental box, but others want to build with people.
So, you're talking about the line, is it, your customer, you said they might be farmers or they might be people that are independents that do fertilizing? I mean, so can you describe a little bit more about the customer market? Like what's the current custom for spraying these huge, humongous fields? I mean.
So, okay, the current way that's conventional is the big giant tractor that has the land that's on
But
wheels.
who does it? Who owns the tractors?
The farmers own those tractors, and they will, if you ever walk into a big barn on a private farm, there's millions of dollars of equipment that they use once a year. The combines, they don't need those to plant, they just need those to get the product out of the field. And that's one of the nice things about it in ag, they're not, a $200,000 piece of equipment that's what they do. The land-based sprayer is 300 grand before the tractor. So the strange thing is, we're going to make money and we're going to come in so low, it's almost one of these things that's too good to be true.
So the customer is the farmer.
The end customer is the farmer, and as all the people that we've engaged with right now are individuals, but this isn't out in the real world yet. So whether it's going to be, we have a dealer network with our helicopters already, and it's going to be, while we're not going to put it in the same dealer network, it's going to be able to have sister dealers. And so whether it's New Zealand, Australia, Czechoslovakia, Brazil, whatever the case might be, all of those dealers, they'll be able to have a second dealership that services and sells these machines.
So you have an existing. So you mean, when you say you mean regular helicopters? Like
Yes.
full-size regular helicopters?
Yes. Well, these are still full size, but we have dealers, we have a dealer in Australia, and he sells these single place piloted machines.
Okay.
And so while that legal entity, we don't want him to sell it with the same legal entity, there's going to be a different contract for these machines. And it just so happens, how many dealers do we have?
So the dealer.
Roughly 20?
Just for clarification, so the dealer network, the helicopters that are being sold are similar and they do the same function, they're not like.
Well, they're toys right now. So and that's how do we pivot this company on being, so this is a boutique market where someone has enough, instead of going out and buying a Ferrari, you're going out and buying a private helicopter. You can't even take your buddies with because it's a single-seater. Now that's why we have the two-place, because now you can take your buddy with. Or one of my buddies